And he keeps going back to, I don't know what. Anyway, I'm not making excuses about the Bushes, and I include them as well as my own because I mistakenly and arrogantly was taking pride every time the liberals went nuts about George W. Bush. The difference is, I realized the last 5 years, from 2012 on, how bad things got and said enough of the revenge politics. I at least spent 5 years reaching out to both sides, and I'm sure a few others did as well. But clearly, not enough that could have empathy and realize half the country's suffering means we all suffer. This country works together. It always will. You can't divide this country and expect it to get better. Demonizing half of a country, making them suffer. That's something that I worry about with Trump. Eventually, unless something really major change, we're going to get a response from the Democratic side in probably 2024 that is not going to be pretty. Bill Clinton brought us George W. Bush. And George W. Bush, the last 2 years of his insanity, gave us the arrogance of Obama that we all thought was change, but no, it was arrogance. He wouldn't listen to anybody. And that arrogance gave us Trump, which was a complete opposite reaction. And that's what's happening. We're going from one extreme and we're swinging to the other, and it keeps going wider and wider. And I don't want to see what the Democrats come up with to top Obama. But I'm afraid they're going to find it. This is what I'm saying. I'm not happy watching what's happening, and I'm still warning daily that we need media to repair its integrity. I've been saying that since the day of the election. And by the way, Joe Scarborough admitted it the day after the election that the media needed to repair its integrity. And what's he doing? It doesn't look like he's repairing anything. They're mad because we're not listening to them. How are we supposed to trust them? They haven't repaired anything. They give us innuendo without any facts whatsoever. They say that something's going to happen, and then it doesn't, and then they say it again, and it doesn't, and eventually, like 10 times later, they leave, and we're supposed to assume that that's true? That's a prophecy. If you say it enough times, eventually it probably is going to become true. That doesn't mean you've repaired your integrity. It means that you've gained it back. They're hoping by throwing Trump out of office that somehow or another, like it did after Nixon when he left, their integrity will come back to them all at once, and they can lecture us about how awful we were to not listen to them in the first place. And it's not happening. And part of the problem is that they don't have any proof. They still don't have any proof. And they're ignoring the real proof that's out there with the IG report. Anyway. And he just kind of, it just keeps going and going and going. But basically what I wanted to point out is California, and this is like a year ago, okay? California was already talking then about like farming old people and isolating from their children. Hitler took the young, the ones that he chose, he handpicked. He took them from the families. He put them in these homes to raise them, to these clubs. They were called the Hitler Youth. And then he indoctrinates them. And he wanted to because he wanted to have control. So basically this man's talking about our schools being used to indoctrinate our children into hating us. That didn't end well for the Germans. They ended up killing a lot of Jews over this, let alone gay people, which this man's gay. Why in the world would you be for re-bringing in Hitler and the Nazi idealism into this country where they can damage you? This man's insane, and he's from California. I don't understand how this can be happening with educated people. After this conversation, whenever I see California come up in a profile on any site, I immediately start to fear talking to these people, because if they're thinking this way, but you know, the worst part is, I can walk in black neighborhoods and not fear. I'm a white man. I don't fear them. I don't have a problem with them. If they're dressing like hoodlums, I have a bit of a problem. I get a little nervous, but that's because of their dressing. That's not who they are. That's what they're wearing. They choose that. They choose the image they're going to put out. However, I'd never before had a racist bone in my body. This makes me look at California, and I have to struggle with myself to remind me that the leaders of California, and this man, and probably a few others, might be insane and crazy and deranged. But that is not all of California. And yet I look at California, I hear the word California, and immediately I cringe. And there has never before been a place in this country that I was concerned, I had a hesitation to go to. Now I do. That worries me. That concerns me. That is to me a form of a ism, racism, whatever you want to call it. The fact is, I have to consciously keep reminding myself that just because the state's leaders are insane doesn't mean the California citizens deserve to be dehumanized into their Californians. Okay? And remember, that's what Hitler did. Jews, they dehumanized them. They isolated them into groups, into little segments. And, I have to constantly tell myself now, don't do that. Try to interact with these people. Try to make that effort. And I find it harder, and I am disgusted that people like this, people in Washington, people in Hollywood, people in the media, they're the ones that created this situation. If you look to the people they're talking to in Washington, D.C., most of them on the Democratic side that have a voice now are from California. There's 38 California Democrats, but they're not the only representatives in the House. There's, I believe, 15 of Republicans. So that means, and if you look at the map where the districts went, it didn't stop at California's border. There are red districts in California. So I have to struggle to remember this because that's the voice we hear. And every time you watch on TV, 90% of the time you're going to see a House member from California. And if you have 38 members from one state and you got 159 members spread out over 49 states, is it any wonder that they've got a lock on everything that goes on in that party? Those other states are not able to band together. They have their own interests they have to look at. And so they're fragmented. That 38 people have an overwhelming power over that 159. They need to lose that megaphone. They need to understand that this is a country that is still a democracy, a republic, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter as far as I'm concerned. It is a free society, and I will not stand by and watch it turn into a dictatorship. If that's not clear to anybody, like I said, democracy, republic, I don't care. It is a free society, and it is going to stay that way if I have anything to say about it. And I'm obviously not healthy. All I got is ideas, and I got a voice. I may not speak very well. I have difficulty with grammar, but I will have a say. And as long as there's a possibility of reaching a few people, I will do it. There was more that was written on here, but basically he's a narcissist, so everything I was writing he had a tendency to ignore, and he kept pointing to things that he said, and basically his answer was, history repeats itself, and we can't fix this, so basically we just need to isolate ourselves from each other, which is what the left has been talking about for a while. We need to go to safe spaces. And you can tell how badly their arguments have fragmented. When they start to believe ICE, that's a campaign issue that they could win, when they start to believe that genders are like all over the place, when they start to believe in trans species, that's a sign that a bunch of group is together and they only talk to each other. That is a problem for me. And I will go back to what happened with Matthew Shepard, because that's where I learned this. That word that kept being said over and over again, we don't teach hate. But we do. We just don't say it out loud. We do it in our actions. We send this message to our children. Those children always improve on what we teach them. They take it to the next extreme. And over time, it gets crazier and crazier and crazier. If you're teaching them wisdom, if you're teaching them the right things, if you're consistent in what you're saying and doing, they will know what right and wrong is. They will not have a problem. They know that they got to do what they got to do to get out of college, and they'll do that. But they know what right and wrong is. They will be able to understand when they hear stupid people. I don't want to hang around with these people. Let the individual isolate based upon what they know is right and wrong. But it starts at home.